What is good, y'all? Mikey T, the movie star, back on something I'm going to do for the first time. This is officially going to be the movie star status podcast. There's a lot of people out there who say, oh, that's a movie. That's a movie. It's a movie. You know what I mean? I had always come up saying, yo, that's movie star status. My vibe is movie star status. You know what I'm saying? Movie star status. So that's honestly what we're gonna run with. I don't want to just do what everybody else is doing. I never have. When they all did the DVDs, I came here to YouTube. My DVD deal, it didn't work out. Some people who had told me they were affiliated with the Cocaine City DVDs came to me after they saw the momentum I had as Mikey T, the movie star. They said, yo, Mikey T, the movie star, we want to do a whole line of DVDs based on what you do. And everybody knows I was waving the whole Mikey T, the movie star status flag. You know what I'm saying? And that's realistically where everybody attains to be. You know what I mean? My brother's a director. You know what I mean? He put me in some movies. That's where I got the whole thing from, Mikey T, the movie star. But in reality, everybody that we watch, whether it's musicians, rappers, singers, whether it's athletes, you know what I mean? Baseball players, football players, soccer players, basketball players, you know what I'm saying? Whether it's musicians, whether it's athletes, you know what I'm saying? Whether it's even professional wrestlers, look at The Rock and John Cena and Batista all coming into film before them, Hulk Hogan. Everybody has always attained to be a high level movie star. And that's where my whole persona comes from. That's where the whole it's a movie thing comes from. That's where being movie star status comes from. And that's what we're going to run with, you guys. You know what I mean? Because when I come on here, I'm going to be covering stories. Is it breaking news? Does it deserve to be on the cover of a magazine? Let's figure it out. You know what I mean? When I did articles with Hip Hop Weekly and it got featured in 2-page spreads with Little Dirk should have been on the cover of the magazine. Let's be real. You know what I mean? I've done things like get people like Gunplay from MMG on the cover of magazines, Bang'em Smurf on the cover of magazines. You know what I mean? Is what you're doing movie star status? Is it deserving of being reported on? That's what I'm going to come on here and talk about from now on, you guys, as long as it is of that stature. And today, my topic of conversation is going to be a channel that attained 1 million subscribers very fast, a channel that rose high up in the ranks to challenge some of the OG channels, some of the legendary channels like Drink Champs, like the Joe Budden podcast, and like $1 million worth of game. The podcast I'm talking about today is My Expert Opinion, presented by Math Hoffa, a rapper, a battle rapper, really. He got into the game and he made his name battle rapping. Began to transition into music, releasing some projects after he got banned for getting into a fight during various battles. It was one battle in particular. And then he started really pushing his music. And Math was being accepted for his music by a lot of the blogs. You know what I mean? A lot of the blogs back then were actually looking for the next big thing. They were looking for the next big rapper that was going to transition, kind of like how they talked about Cassidy. Everybody was like, oh, Cassidy used to be a battle rapper. Well, hold up, man. Hold up. There's a lot of people from Philly that recognize Cassidy as a battle rapper, and there's even people from New York that recognize him as a battle rapper. But the majority of the world did not see Cassidy come into the game as a battle rapper. The majority of the world knows Cassidy from Hotel. They know Cassidy also from Hustler. You know what I'm saying? B-Boy Stand. They know Cassidy from records, so they don't really, we don't know, you know what I mean? Speaking for the hip hop, your general population of hip hop fans, We didn't know Cassidy as a battle rapper at first, so he cannot take that title. There's a few different battle rappers that tried to transition. Hollow the Don, you know what I mean? Sue Surf, Math Hoffa was one of them. You know what I mean? I was running around in Miami. Shout out to It's Matic. He was getting Math Hoffa, myself into all the nightclubs. NYB, salute. They had a dominant clique too. Cortez, Hollow the Don, Math himself. You know what I mean? They had a lot of different people in their clique. But the thing is, at this point in time, battle rap started to popularize. You didn't even need to transition anymore from battle rap to actually rapping. Sue Surf was in the middle of the transition, and then he started getting paid mad racks for battles. So it's like, what's the point? When you sign to a label, you end up waiting for the money. When you sign up to a label, you end up facing the risk of not even dropping your albums. Look at what happened to Little Reese when he signed to Def Jam. Look what happened, more recent stories. Look what happened to Bobby Shmurda when he came home. Where is his album? Where is Rowdy Rebel and Bobby Shmurda's GS9 album? But that's another topic for another day. Math Hoffa made his transition through podcasting. He made his transition rapidly through podcasting. You know, I had a conversation one time where I was telling Math that I believe he was going to get 1 million subscribers. I felt it was a little bit disrespectful that Math Hoffa was told by Hassan, yo, we got the same amount of subscribers, 500. Yo, Math Hoffa's channel was shooting past 500,000 subscribers. You know what I mean? It was pretty evident. He had the whole setup. He had the whole vibe. You know what I mean? The realistic vibe of his podcast with the barbershop chairs. It was a little bit Ice Cube. We get it. You know what I mean? But none of us fans who had heard about the barbershop talk and who had participated in barbershop talk had seen it like that. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about Cedric the Entertainer and Eve in the movie. I'm talking about something where we take the conversation to only hip hop, you know what I mean? Whatever else it's going to be, politics, world issues, whatever else they talk about on there, but it's predominantly hip hop and it features different hip hop artists in a different way. You know what I mean? It features them in a way where they're not being censored. It features them in a way where they're comfortable. It wasn't like the other studio setups that Gilly has, that Joe Budden has, that even Nori has with all the drinks surrounding Drink Champs. There was something different about the way Math was doing, and people gravitated towards it. Math Hoffa's early success was crazy. You could look at Math Hoffa's page and you could see all the most popular videos. You know what I mean? Millions of views. Let me go through some of the videos that had some of the biggest views on his channel. You had the Tony Yayo and Uncle Murda episode, 3.1 million views. You had Smart up there talking about rappers selling their souls, 2.7 million views. They interviewed Derrick Rose, you know what I mean? 2 million views, more interviews with Smart, you know what I mean? I actually interviewed Smart a few times. Personally, I think Math Hoffa should have added Smart as a co-host of My Expert Opinion. I think that Math Hoffa should have brought Hassan Campbell on as a co-host of My Expert Opinion, much like Adam 22 has done, bringing on all these different co-hosts. He had Spider Loke from G Unit rocking, for crying out loud. He made AD a big name. He made House Phone a big name. He turned these people into celebrities. And Math Hoffa had a bit of an issue because he had the perfect cast. You had the perfect cast. You had the Sean Bigga, who was taking a real deep inside look, taking a real look inside of the issues that come with these big rappers, the Tupac conversations with Smith and Wesson, whatever he brought to the table with Tony Yayo and Uncle Murda. Then you had the SO, the Heineken. These guys were asking the real hip hop perspective because they're the hip hop heads of the show. And then you got the intelligence factor of Mecca, a writer from back in the day that really knows the whole story. Math Hoffa had his guests and his co-host picked out perfectly. The formula was picked out perfectly. It's how people would have acted in a barbershop. The loud dude who's trying to get his point across, like Esso, the dude Heineken, you know what I mean? Whatever Heineken's doing. You know what I'm saying? You got Mech there bringing up all the facts that were actually reported on in a magazine. So it's like you can't run away from it. They had all these very interesting aspects that made My Expert Opinion A+ show, and it made it a show worthy of competing with $1 million worth of game, the Joe Budden podcast, and the other top names. You know what I'm saying? But the question today is, how did it fall from grace? How did he lose that position where he was up in competition with Nori, Gilly, Joe Budden? You know, we're going to talk about several things, but the first thing I'm going to bring to your attention is a live stream that happened recently. That's right, guys. There was a live stream that Math Hoffa did. He actually did a live stream where he spoke about Wallow. Should Wallow for $1 million worth of game? Salute to Wallow as well. He's held me down on several different occasions. Real good dude. I remember he just showed me so much merch and he let me and my guys pick whatever we wanted out of the merch. I always respected that because Wallow actually gave me my first headband. So Math Hoffa did a video. Should Wallow be canceled over this? Question mark, question mark, question mark. 7 days ago, 16,000 views. And then Joe Budden had a similar post. It was Wallow refuses to blindly support Black-owned businesses. 102,000 views. Now, the difference in subscribers is Joe Budden has 1.5 million and Math Hoffa has 1 million subscribers. So there's really nothing that could be said there between the amount of subscriptions, even though Joe Budden has 500,000 more subs than Math Hoffa, because the difference in views is just so drastic. Math Hoffa, 16,000 views. Joe Budden, 102,000 views. You know what I mean? Now, let's bring up the point that Math Hoffa isn't known to be sitting in front of his camera like this and discussing topics. This is not where he does his most views. This is not where the conversation is its most authentic in the My Expert Opinion case. What those 1 million fans love is the fact that they're in that barbershop setting. They love the fact that there's somebody that can disagree with an opinion right away, just like somebody commenting on a YouTube video would do. It's like, no, that's a dumb point. No, that's a wrong point. Yes, that's correct. Anything like that could happen on My Expert Opinion. But when Math is just doing these videos in front of the computer, it's not connecting as well. You could tell by the string of videos he did talking about Kanye West. Math Hoffa confirms rumors about ... 17,000 views 2 weeks ago. Terrence Howard said Diddy wanted to smash. And people be calling me about my titles? People be calling me about my titles. Right. Don't any rapper that does an interview with me from now on never call me about a title. Please. I do this thing for the love of hip hop. I do it to spread awareness and to create discussion. And so this title, Terrence Howard said this crazy about Diddy, and Math Hoffa got 9,000 views from it. Math Hoffa got 9,000 views from it. So that right there should tell you something about what's going on with Math Hoffa's channel right now. Now, let's go back, though. Let's go back because, like I was saying, they had massively popular videos. The Legends Only, Math Hoffa versus Method Man battle, 1.8 million views 4 years ago. My Expert Opinion, episode 133, Tony Yayo and Uncle Murda, 3.1 million views 2 years ago. Smart Interview, Rappers Selling Their Souls, 2.7 million views 3 years ago. We got to pay attention to that. The last Fat Joe interview, They Were Terrified of Suge Knight, 1.3 million views. So let's go to where things seemingly started to go wrong. Things seemingly started to go wrong when Math Hoffa released the interview with Fat Joe. So I'm not actually sure if there's a piece of this interview that has been taken off the internet, but from my research, from the research that I've done, the highest rated clip from his last interview with Fat Joe was 194,000 views. I'm going to analyze a few things here for you guys because I've been doing YouTube for a long time. So Fat Joe, it's too late now. Fat Joe addresses the headlines, 40,000 views. Fat Joe speaks on crossing the line in hip hop, 26,000 views. Fat Joe, being a rapper is hard as F. Fat Joe talks talent versus money and going viral, 30,000 views. Let's find the big one that I was talking about. Fat Joe exposes the biggest cap story ever told, 96,000 views. Where is it? Fat Joe on Remy Ma and Papoose. She made me love him, 194,000 views. So right there, 194,000 views as of 4 months ago. And the last interview that Math Hoffa did with Fat Joe actually did nearly 2 million views. You know what I mean? Probably more than 2 million views if you include all of the interviews. A lot of people say this is where things went wrong for Math Hoffa. Some people say it was the Bimmy interview. You know what I mean? Some people say it was actually the Bimmy interview. And some people say it was right here when Math Hoffa and the host of the other guys didn't know what the FBA was. And I believe they had already interviewed Lord Jamar. So this really comes back to research. We're going to address research a few times on this video today, you guys, because doing what I do, it comes with a lot of research. Ask any of my guys that I work with, any of my people that I work with, man. We go over this content for hours and hours and hours to put together the best interviews that will not be forgotten, interviews that will stand the test of time, and something you could watch in 5 years from now and it will still matter. That's what I do with my interviews, and it shows because all of my interviews that I do, they have repeat history. They have replay value. So Fat Joe, a lot of people would think Fat Joe interview made Math Hoffa, in my expert opinion, stumble. Now, the thing is, after that, they went on to have some pretty dope interviews. We're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about him interviewing Steve Rifkin. I'm only going to graze over it, though, because the interview that he did with Steve Rifkin, actually views are like 33,000 views, 24,000 views, 50,000 views, 38,000 views. Steve Rifkin, 14,000 views, 23,000 views. A lot of people were toting my expert opinion as the next biggest podcast. When I go on Gillian Wallow's page, I see videos with 900,000 views, 400,000 views, 1+ million views. I don't know if you can really, and this is no disrespect to my expert opinion, you know what I mean? But you can't really categorize these numbers as the best podcast ever. I do numbers like this. Is Mikey T, the movie star, the best podcast ever? You know what I'm saying? Let's just be real about this because I don't get nominated for the awards. You know what I'm saying? And I do numbers like this. So we got to ask ourselves, can we really tote we got to really look at what we're doing. Can we tote somebody as the number one when he's doing numbers like this? We're going to look at something that I think is very important next. It was the interview with Master P. So this is something that I think could have been very alarming for Math Hoffa, just speaking as a podcaster. You know, this is something that would have really upset me. So Math Hoffa drops an interview with Master P. It's an hour and 10 minutes. It's 70 minutes worth of footage that he shoots with Master P. And there's one clip, the highest rated clip out of the whole 70 minutes was 281,000 views. So, and I looked at it. I said, okay, that's pretty good. You know, those are good numbers, even though if you're doing an interview with Master P, it should probably do over 1 million views easy if you're the hottest podcast. You know, so I looked at the numbers, 281,000, and then I looked at the amount of time that the video was. The video was only 5 minutes and 50 seconds. So the other numbers on this clip, there is a 133,000, there's a 48,000, there's a 78,000, there's a 47,000, and there's another 154,000 view clip. Now, one of the most alarming and concerning things is the fact that they did their most views on a clip that was 5 minutes and 50 seconds. So that right there, it's saying basically you didn't earn as much money as you could have if you released it overall and got that many views. And as a new podcaster, you know, because Math is pretty new in this game, you know what I mean? His podcast rose up rapidly. That could be very disconcerting. You know, it could be like, oh man, what am I doing this for? What am I doing this for? I just earned $2,000 or $1,500 off of something I could have really earned like $6,000 off of if I had just done it the right way, if I had just released it the right way. So I think the interview, as successful as it was, I think the interview with Master P could have threw Math Hoffa off and been like, damn, there's so much more money I could have earned off of that. And I never saw the success of that one clip again. I know this because as a YouTuber, I've gone through this. You know what I mean? When you release a 10-minute clip and it does like 100,000 views and you're like, oh man, why couldn't the full 65 minutes have been with the 100,000 views? And then I would have earned X amount more. A lot of YouTubers go through this. Matt, you shouldn't feel so like upset about that if you are. You know what I mean? You can repurpose your videos. You can reach out and get new interviews and do it the right way the next time. But now we're going to take a look at the next time. Let's take a look at the next time because a lot of people say Math Hoffa was over after the Fat Joe thing. Math Hoffa was still able to secure headline interviews after that. But it's just the way that he goes about releasing them. And then also, big thing, the research. The research is important. So the next interview that Math gets, some of them I'm not going over, I'm grazing through. He gets Exhibit, 77,000, 23,000, 28,000, 11,000, 14,000. Guys, these are Exhibit numbers on My Expert Opinion. 77,000 was the highest rated number that Exhibit got on My Expert Opinion. And honestly, looking back, everybody that's watching this, y'all could look back. Y'all probably watched this show on MTV, Pimp My Ride, a show that was seen by tens of millions of people. And you got the chance to interview this guy, and it's only 77,000 views. I'm just pointing this out because any major network is going to look at this and be like, wow, he had the opportunity with Exhibit, who was actually on national television. He had the opportunity with Keenan from Keenan and Kel. He had the next opportunity. This is why I'm speaking about this like this. The next opportunity Math got is literally one of the biggest opportunities in hip hop history. For people that say Math Hoffa was over after Fat Joe, he still went on to interview Master P. He got Exhibit, but more recently, he got Rollo. He got the biggest story in hip hop. I want to say Rollo was the biggest story in hip hop since Max B. I want to say Rollo had the biggest incarceration story in hip hop since Max B. Rollo doesn't do Vlad and he does My Expert Opinion. So the big problem with this interview, aside from the views, you know, he does, let's see what he does with Rollo. Math and the My Expert Opinion family do 183,000 views with Rollo talking about the paperwork party and Rollo breaking his silence on his federal case. the biggest case in hip hop history. I'm going to go on record and call Rollo getting caught with that in that jet with 500 pounds. I'm going to call that the biggest case in hip hop history. Y'all can put in the comments what you think was the biggest hip hop case in history, whether you think it's Young Thug or you think it's Diddy or you think what is going on with Keefy D right now. But I'm going to say Rollo had the biggest case in hip hop history. And on Math Hoffa's channel, it does 183,000 views. This is an interview that should have easily done 5 million views on a channel that's supposed to be able to attain that many views. You have 1 million people and you don't have the people watching back Rollo's video with you 5 times, where he talks about how the police surrounded him in a jet and forced him to come out. Now, in the interview, research was crucial because Math Hoffa made a very embarrassing mistake in this interview, almost like as embarrassing when he interviewed the Coco singer, Coco Jones. When he asked her if she was from, where she was from, he actually said to Rollo, "How was it? How was the feeling of facing 80 to 100 years in jail?" And Rollo's like, "It was 80 to 100 months." Like, this is why I stress. This is why I stress research. People look at Mikey T, the movie star. They're like, "Oh, what he does is so easy. Going out and interviewing Rick Ross, going out and interviewing Lil Wayne, interviewing French Montana." Interviewing French Montana is the furthest thing from easy. You know what I'm saying? Interviewing Max B from inside the cell, interviewing Big L's best friend and rhyme partner Herb McGruff. Some of these things, interviewing AZ, I make it look easy. But the thing is, we put in thousands of hours of work because this is what we love to do. Because we don't want to F up people's stories by asking them if they're from the Middle East, asking them if they're facing 100 years in jail. Come on, it doesn't make sense. The next part of his interview with Rollo did 165,000 views, 69,000 views, 55,000 views, and 65,000 views. So Math Hoffa has like the biggest interview in hip hop. And honestly, I think that Rollo probably should have went to Vlad TV. You know what I mean? Because as an artist, you really got to pick and choose. You know, I'm not saying pick and choose and not go to certain podcasts. You have to pick and choose where you do your first look. And it's without a look at what happened with BG. Vlad gave BG an opportunity to do his first look. And BG didn't want to do it. And now, you know what I mean? BG's buzz is just not where it should be. You know what I'm saying? I just wanted to come on here today and keep it real about this part of the downfall of the Math Hoffa, My Expert Opinion podcast. You know, we saw it rise up in the ranks extremely fast. You know what I mean? And this can happen to some people, you know, when they get to heights of fame so fast. You know what I mean? They can get caught up. You know what I mean? It even happened to me. You know what I mean? It even happened to me. But you know, Math, I hope he gets it all together. Personally, I think he should just go rent his own spot and rent some barbershop chairs. I don't know why you're stressing using somebody else's barbershop. It makes absolutely no sense. It makes no sense that you're stressing somebody else's barbershop when you've already put together the fan base to actually have a successful show. You know, all you need is to go on Amazon and order 5 barbershop chairs, and then you can have a revolving cast of people that you bring on the show. You know, another big issue is that he went to war with Hassan Campbell for no reason. You know what I mean? He went to war with Hassan Campbell when he could have actually had Hassan Campbell as one of his co-hosts. A lot of people are telling me, Mikey T, you're bugging out with that one. You can edit around some of the conspiracy theories, but even as I was reading the numbers, Math Hoffa let Smart go up there and say whatever conspiracy theories that he wanted. I just think there was a better way that this could have been played that could have kept My Expert Opinion growing to really be competition for Drink Champs or competitions for $1 million worth of game or competition for the Joe Budden podcast. But now I'm just looking at it like we can't even call it competition for those shows. You know what I mean? We just can't. The last interview that Math Hoffa did was with Dragon. And, no shade, no shade, but I don't know how you go from Master P, Exhibit, Rollo to Drag On. You know what I mean? It's pretty dope because Drag doesn't really like to do interviews all that much. And apparently that was because of his stutter, which he has addressed multiple times, actually. You know what I mean? But it's just crazy, because looking at the Dragon numbers, 33,000 views, 22,000 views, 14,000 views, 35,000 views, then 58,000 views, 67,000 views, 25,000 views, 29,000 views. Looking at the numbers, I could see why somebody would want to give up and just say, hey, man, maybe I'm making more money elsewhere. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm getting more money elsewhere. Why should I continue renting the shop? Why should I continue paying podcast hosts? Because when you're doing numbers like 29,000, 25,000, and then you got your 65,000, 67,000 clips, and there was one with 110,000, you just really have to take into consideration why you're paying people, if it could be a one-man operation. You know what I mean? But My Expert Opinion was not a one-man operation because it's a barbershop setting. It's not like what I'm doing. It's not like what Gilly and Wallow are doing or Nori and DJ EFN are doing. You know what I mean? Joe Budden podcast is obviously a lot different. He actually has a revolving door, or he has different guests on, or guest hosts on his show, or excuse me, co-hosts on his show. He's got multiple of them. He even put Queen's Flip up there. You know what I'm saying? He put Queen's Flip up there. Why? Because Queen's Flip consistently generates 300,000 views. Math Hoffa could have followed that same blueprint. He could have followed the same blueprint and actually done that. Hire Hassan Campbell. Just tell Hassan, hey, being on My Expert Opinion is going to benefit you as well. And you know what? Bimmy would have respected that. Bimmy would have respected that. But it's just not the same when you're taking an artist side compared to taking a blogger's side, a podcaster's side. A podcaster has the time. An artist doesn't necessarily have the time. They're not going to be able to commit to a weekly show every time. So let's take a look at what happened after the Dragon interview. Math Hoffa released a compilation. This was good. This was good because it didn't let everybody know that things were wrong. The most heated moments, My Expert Opinion, a collage of different clips, 100,000 views. Boom. 10% of his audience watching it. Boom. And this is good filler too. This is good filler, Math. You know what I mean? I don't know if you took a page out of my book. You know what I mean? You see me throwing up all the rewinds. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you got the 100,000 views, but he went back to the well. Craziest conspiracy theories, My Expert Opinion. 21,000 views. The next week, you know what I mean? Maybe we can get another 100K out of this. 21,000 views. We lost 79,000 viewers from one collage video to the next. Let's see what happens on the third collage video. The biggest pause moments. 3.6 thousand views. 3,600 views on that video, you guys. And the reason is because it was up. It was up, man. People understood what it is. 3 compilation videos in a row. The last interview was Dragon. The writing was on the wall. You know what I'm saying? Plus, maybe you just needed to add in My Expert Opinion, biggest pause moments. But again, you know what I mean? Again, that wasn't done. Stories from behind the bars, My Expert Opinion. The very next video, he adds in the name of My Expert Opinion and it does 16,000 views. But again, these numbers got me thinking, like, if we're toting this as the biggest podcast in the world, then we might just have like the wool pulled over our eyes. You know what I mean? We might just have a fascination with how much of a dope battle rapper Math Hoffa is. You know what I'm saying? Because these are numbers that I do, you guys. These are numbers that I do. And although a lot of people give me my props, you know, when I go and do interviews, they're like, Mikey T, you're a legend. Mikey T, you're a legend. I still don't get put up there with the hottest podcast in the world. So I don't think my expert opinion can be top 5 anymore with these numbers. What comes out next? Math Hoffa talks about Kanye getting the Kanye West cosign. Not a good time for that, Math. 3.6 thousand views. Kanye says John Legend smells like mashed potatoes. Okay. 3.4 thousand views. Is free speech gone? What happened to Kanye? 3,000 views. 3,000 views on a 1 million view channel. Now, this is something that was very alarming when I saw it because Matt did a video. We lost the My Expert Opinion barbershop, ? 2 weeks ago. We lost the barbershop 2 weeks ago. 169,000 views. 169,000 people tuned in for that video. I'm more interested in the views of the next video. I don't care how many people tuned in to read about your demise. That's when the most people tune in. When they can read about you ending what you're doing, they're going to tune in to see what's up. 169,000 views. It's a nice boost. You know what I mean? Couple grand. Let's see how long the video was. 16 minutes. 16 minutes. The next video, though, surefire hit video, right? Was Young Scooter set up? Young Thug disputes the autopsy reports. This video just came after a video with 169,000 views, and it only did 3,000 views. It only did 3,000 views, you guys. I scroll up, and we look at what's next. The video title is Math Hoffa Gets Heated. Response incoming. 31,000 views. Released 8 days ago. 31,000 views. Math is at the point where he has to resort to a headline like that in order to draw the attention of the people. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. It's crazy when you get to that point. Look at this. 6ix9ine takes credit for Dirt going to prison. 6,000 views. Released right after the heated response incoming. Moments that could change your life. My Expert Opinion. 5.7 thousand views 13 days ago. 2 weeks ago, 5,700 views on Moments That Could Change Your Life. Do you want to know moments that could change your life? When you flop a Fat Joe interview, when you don't stand up to Fat Joe during an interview, when you don't do your proper research on Rollo, when you put a 5-minute video with a captivating headline that draws in 300,000, and you should have used that headline for your 70-minute video. These are the moments that I'm talking about today. So after that, moments that could change your life, Math had to go back to the well. He thought to himself, what can I do? What can I take from the multiple My Expert Opinion interviews, his catalog, I meant to say. He went back in, Untold Tupac Stories, 19,000 views. That was nice. That was nice. Heartbreaking Addiction Stories, 6.4 thousand views. And those are My Expert Opinion clips, you guys. Not clips of Math Hoffa talking like this at his crib. Those are My Expert Opinion classic videos put all together doing 5,000 views and 6,000 views. And then the Tupac one, 19,000 views. You know what I mean? Biggest pause moments on my expert opinion, 3,100 views. This is why I wanted to talk about what's going on today. I wanted to talk about what's happening with my expert opinion, what was thought to be a podcast that could have been number one. I really thought that Math Hoffa's channel could have been there to challenge Gilly and Wallow and Nori, as I've said. Math calls it an independent YouTube channel. There was allegedly a deal with Revolt on the table. Personally, I don't know why anybody would want to sign with Revolt. They don't get the syndication that you really need to get yourself out there. I think Nori did, and Breakfast Club was over there for a while, if they're not still over there. But I just never really got the idea of signing with a station that has less than syndication. You know what I mean? I'm just not down for that. If I'm going to sign with a network, I want it to be one of the tops, MTV, BET, VH1, E! News Channel, Oxygen, you know what I'm saying? FX, you know what I'm saying? I want it to be a channel that's worthwhile, something that actually has major syndication on the internet, because in reality, all of these YouTube channels are the new MTVs. At one point in time, No Jumper was on its way to being the next MTV, but they kind of went Jerry Springer. You know what I mean? And what happened to Jerry Springer? What happened to Monday Night Raw? You know what I mean? All these different TV shows that had trashy content, they lost viewers by the millions. You know what I'm saying? But the whole Adam 22 conversation, that's a podcast for another day. You know what I mean? Today, I want to talk about my expert opinion. I want to go over the various numbers from the past, their heights of 3 million, 2 million. You know what I mean? When the crazy conspiracy theories, or just Tony Yayo and Uncle Murda. You know what I mean? But now at the levels of 3,000 views, and the Fat Joe interview going from 1 million views to 195,000 views. It's just pretty shocking. You know what I mean? Just as quick as you go up, you can come back down. You know what I mean? I remember back in the day when I first got started, people on World Star were commenting. They were like, "Oh, Mikey T, how long is it going to take for Mikey T to get caught slipping out there?" I was like, damn, you're actually considering the fact that I have a career with this. And you know what I mean? That's all I ever wanted, was to get involved in this industry, you guys. And since the pandemic, a lot of these big YouTube channels that claim to be the next MTV, and you know what I mean, and the next VH1 and the next BET, after all the pandemic happened and their views went up like crazy, and now they're like, oh, all our views went down, we were tripling. I just want to let the world know, since the pandemic, I've been doing good. Since the pandemic, when my viewership skyrocketed, I managed to keep at least half of that viewership. I'm not on here complaining about doing 4 times the views and now I'm doing so less views. I actually, before the pandemic, when I first started, my channel was based a whole different way. I capitalized off the pandemic. I capitalized off of that surge in viewership. A lot of my viewers never left. You know what I mean? A lot of the viewers from these other channels, there's just so many viewers, millions plus viewers. A lot of people are going to look at it like, what am I watching this for? Oh, they made that decision. They said that. What am I even watching this for? And they click off. And we've seen that happen with numerous controversial episodes that have happened on all of these channels, man. But my channel, what I do, it's about bringing great interviews, because I literally take all the time to write my stuff. I take all the time to research my stuff and know what I want to ask about. And a lot of it, I actually lived through it. I'm not in interviews misquoting. You know what I mean? Freaking Tony Yayo just said the massacre went against graduation. Like, what is that? First of all, The Massacre sold 1.1 million and Graduation sold like 957,000. You know, if those two albums went up against each other, it would have been a different story. It was, but that's another topic, you guys. Y'all know I got that information. I love talking about it and I love talking with y'all. So drop a comment what you thought about this video. There's going to be a lot more coming from me, man. You know I never stop. Go run up all the numbers on all my other videos and make sure you hit that like button. And if you're on Instagram, follow me, Mikey T _ the movie star. And if you're not subscribed here on YouTube, make sure you subscribe right now.